They say airports are places of beginnings and reunions, but today it was where one soldier stood guard over a promise carved into his soul. The chaos of the terminal didn't faze Sergeant Samuel Harper. As gate numbers blinked and voices buzzed through the loudspeakers, he stood still, immovable, not because of the polished shoes or the crisp lines of his uniform, but because of the stars and stripes draped over the casket at his side. When the airport manager dared to reach toward that flag, Harper's voice sliced through the din. "You don't touch the flag." It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary, one etched not just in duty but in blood. The onlookers may have seen only a flight delay, but for Harper, this moment was sacred. No one knew what that coffin meant to him. No one knew about the firefight in the Middle East or the soldier lying inside the casket who had once dragged him out of hell. Private First Class Daniel Walsh, Danny, hadn't just been a brother in arms. He had been the reason Harper was still breathing, and now a decorated general was en route to make things right. But before the brass arrived, Harper stood alone, holding the line. Just hours before, Dulles International had been its usual blur of boarding calls and roller suitcases. But Harper wasn't moving. A sentinel among the swarm, his badge from Arlington's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier gleamed like an oath. He was a man known for silence, for discipline, but his stillness today carried a different kind of weight. Today wasn't about drills or ceremonies. It was about a promise whispered under desert stars. "If I don't make it, bring me home right." 3 days ago, that vow became real. Danny was 25, young, bright, the kind of guy who cracked jokes in sandstorms and dreamed of flying planes once the war was done. But war had other plans. During a mission shrouded in classified silence, he laid down his life to save his unit. Now Harper walked every step for him, for the boy who had kept him grounded, for the friend who died a hero. Across the terminal, Maggie Walsh clutched her granddaughter Emma's hand. 70 years old, her back was straight with military precision, the kind that never really leaves a nurse who's patched up wounds from Vietnam to the modern-day front lines. Maggie had sent her husband to war, then her son. And now she was preparing to bury the last heartbeat of a legacy she'd once held so tightly. Emma, just 10, stared through the glass toward the tarmac. "Grandma, is that Danny's plane?" The question was small, but it cracked the air. Maggie could only nod, throat clenched against the scream she wasn't allowed to make. Upstairs, behind a pane of reinforced glass, James Thornton's world ticked by in schedules and statistics. The airport operations manager prided himself on one thing: efficiency. A Kilensvenyos Zazalek on-time departure rate. That was his gospel. Framed awards lined his office like medals. Every minute mattered, and a military escort cutting through the heart of the terminal during peak rush? Unacceptable. "This can't happen," he muttered, eyes locked on his tablet. "Reroute them through the service corridor." His assistant, Sarah, hesitated, voice low. "Sir, the director approved the main concourse." Thornton's jaw tensed. To him, this wasn't honor. It was lost time. It was 19 departures at risk of delay. A human life lost? That didn't fit into his algorithms. Back below, Harper stood alone, unmoving, unreadable. His white gloves were pristine, but his heart was cracked wide open beneath the uniform. He could still hear the officer's voice from 3 days ago. The letter, the assignment. "You've been selected for escort duty, Sergeant. Bring him home." In his breast pocket, a photo worn at the edges pressed close to his chest. 2 boys grinning beneath a foreign sky, arms slung over each other's shoulders. Danny and Sam, opposites in every way. Danny was wildfire, reckless, warm, loyal to a fault. Sam was logic, control, the compass in the storm. "You think too much, Sam," Danny would laugh, throwing his words into the wind. "Sometimes you just gotta feel it." Over time, that chaos met order and turned into something solid. Friendship, brotherhood, survival. It was under a desert sky, surrounded by sand and silence, when Danny once said, "I lead the charge, but you make sure we're heading the right way." That line had never left Sam. It had etched itself into his chest like a compass point, steadying him when everything else crumbled. And on their third tour, everything did crumble. The ambush came fast, gunfire erupting like thunder, bodies diving for cover, chaos erupting in every direction. But in the middle of it, Danny's voice rang out, "Sam, on your left!" He had thrown himself forward, tackling Sam to the ground just before a bullet sliced through the air they'd both occupied a second earlier. 3 seconds. That's all it took for Danny to save his life. Later that night, as medics stitched them up under the hard glow of portable lights, Sam had tried to say thank you. Danny waved it off with a crooked smile and a quiet, "That's what brothers do." But something in his eyes had changed. There was a shadow behind them now, a flicker of the truth they both tried to outrun. After that, Danny talked more about home, about Maggie, his mother who never missed a care package, about Emma, his 10-year-old sister who sent drawings of superheroes labeled Uncle Danny the Hero. He kept her crayon sketches inside his helmet like a shield against the darkness. Then came the night before his final mission. The stars overhead didn't twinkle. They watched. Danny's voice lost its usual grin. "If anything happens, bring me home proper, through the main terminal, not the back. Dad would have wanted it that way." Sam didn't speak. He just nodded. The kind of nod that meant forever. 3 days later, that nod became a burden he would carry for the rest of his life. Now, back at the airport, the massive transport plane rolled toward the gate, wheels whispering across concrete. As the aircraft door opened with a hiss, the honor guard emerged, moving like a metronome of mourning. And then came the casket, folded in the American flag, a symbol that suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Ground crew removed their caps. Heads bowed. Travelers quieted. Sam stepped forward, his scarlet-trimmed uniform a burning contrast against the cold steel surroundings. Every breath he took was for Danny. Every step, a vow. Inside the terminal, James Thornton stalked down the hallway like a man on a mission, his clipboard gripped like a weapon. "We'll use the service corridors," he barked. "Quick and clean. No need to jam the terminal. They can honor the soldier at the cemetery." His staff scrambled to keep up. Sarah, the young security officer at his side, hesitated. "Sir, the director already approved the main route." Thornton didn't even blink. This airport runs on precision, not pageantry. But out in the arrivals hall, the procession had already begun. With each measured step, time itself seemed to slow. People stopped mid-conversation. Some removed hats, others lowered phones. One elderly man gave a solemn nod. A group of teens quieted. Even a businessman with a ticking clock for a heart froze, caught in the gravity of it all. Sam walked on, steady, his hand occasionally brushing the photo in his pocket, Danny's grin beneath desert skies. This wasn't ceremony. It was penance. It was love. It was war coming home. Thornton cut them off before the terminal doors. "Sergeant," he said, voice low but firm, "I've got a better route. Service corridors, straight to the pickup zone." He held out a map like a bribe. "Faster, cleaner." Sam didn't flinch. "This is Private First Class Daniel Walsh, United States Army. He'll move through the terminal, with honors." As arranged, Thornton's jaw tightened. Those corridors are designed for this kind of situation. Less disruption. Sam's eyes locked on his. "Shouldn't disrupt?" The words came slowly, ice beneath them. "You think his death was convenient?" His voice never rose, but it landed like thunder. "He will not be hidden like freight," Thornton snapped, stabbing a finger at the map. You'd delay thousands of passengers. There's a service elevator right there. This whole display is unnecessary." Sam's voice remained even. "The delay is temporary. The disgrace of sneaking a hero through a back hallway would last forever." Something cracked behind Thornton's eyes. Rage? Embarrassment? He waved Sarah forward. "This is absurd. Airport protocols override your parade." But Sarah had paused, her hand halfway to her radio. Her gaze had shifted to the casket, to the flag catching sunlight like a final salute. Her hand dropped. "Is there a problem?" she asked, eyes never leaving the casket. "Yes," Thornton snapped. "This procession needs to be rerouted for operational efficiency." Sarah glanced at the growing crowd. Travelers were stilling, as if the air itself had changed. "Sir, the director approved this path. I don't see an operational issue serious enough to justify a change." Thornton's voice rose. "I'm responsible for this terminal. These delays cascade." That's when an old man stepped forward from the crowd, his USMC cap pulled low, his voice gravel and steel. "I served in Vietnam," he said. "Lost brothers who never came home. This soldier deserves better than some back hallway." The words rippled like wind through wheat. A businessman slid his phone into his pocket. A mother whispered to her curious child. A flight attendant halted mid-stride, her eyes drawn to the stillness in the terminal. Near the front of the procession, Maggie Walsh stepped forward, Emma clutching her hand tightly, her small fingers wrapped around her grandmother's with quiet desperation. "My Danny!" Maggie's voice trembled, but it did not break. "He loved baseball. He dreamed of flying planes." She looked toward the casket, voice gaining strength like a flag catching wind. "He died saving his squad. He deserves this honor." The terminal grew quieter, the weight of a mother's grief anchoring every soul in place. Still, Thornton moved forward, as if untouched by the current pulling the rest of them under. He raised his hand to halt the procession. "Sergeant, I'm ordering you to redirect immediately." Sam's gaze didn't flicker. "There are regulations older than your airport," he said evenly. "They govern how we honor those who gave everything. Lieutenant Walsh died serving his country in full view of the world. He will not be hidden in death." Thornton's hand twitched, then brushed the edge of the flag. The fabric rippled. So did the crowd. A collective gasp cut the air. Time shrank to a single heartbeat. Sam moved instantly, smoothly, years of training igniting in a single motion. His hand closed around Thornton's wrist, gentle but unbreakable. "Don't touch the flag." He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The quiet in his voice carried more power than 1,000 commands. The terminal held its breath. Thornton's eyes widened, then narrowed. "Take your hands off me," he hissed. "This is assault. I'll have security escort you out." But no one moved. George Miller, standing nearby, removed his cap, pressing it to his chest. A flight attendant dabbed her eyes. The businessman who had once complained now closed his laptop slowly, his face unreadable. Because Thornton hadn't just broken protocol, he had committed a silent sin, one every soldier and veteran in that hall understood instantly. Touching the flag wasn't a logistical mistake, it was a desecration. Sam held Thornton's wrist for exactly 3 seconds, then released him. His face remained still, but in that stillness was fire. "The flag represents a soldier's dedication," Sam said, his voice level but tight with restraint. "The values they upheld, the sacrifice they made. It is not to be touched by anyone outside the honor guard." Thornton rubbed his wrist, defiance flickering behind his eyes. "This is my terminal," he muttered. "I determine how military remains are handled." Sam didn't waver. "Our actions are guided by protocols older than your position, or this airport." The silence in the terminal shifted again, not awkward, not tense, reverent. Travelers stood still, Heads bowed, phones lowered. The space around the casket had transformed, not into an airport, but a sacred threshold. Then came a small voice, that same delicate clarity that only children possess. "That's Danny's flag." Emma Walsh, nestled in her grandmother's arms, pointed with her free hand. The name, Danny, cut through the hush like the toll of a bell. Maggie hugged her tighter. Her face was a map of sorrow, but her eyes held Sam's. In that look was a trust, a connection forged by loss and love, and a promise that had not been broken. Then, from the far side of the terminal, a woman approached. She moved with quiet authority, civilian clothes crisp but unmistakably military in posture. Captain Evelyn Carter, retired Army, now airport director, took in the scene in a glance. The honor guard. Thornton, red-faced and rigid. The casket at the center. Sam, standing like a monument to duty. "Mr. Thornton," she said, "step aside." Her voice was low, but final. She turned to Sam. "Sergeant, my apologies. Your procession will proceed through the main terminal, as planned." Thornton opened his mouth, but Carter cut him off with a single raised hand. She understood what he never would, that some moments are not negotiable, that honor has a cadence you don't rush, that grief and gratitude, when shared by strangers, becomes something sacred. She walked to the terminal's PA system. Her voice echoed across the vast space. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? A fallen soldier is being escorted through our terminal today. As a sign of respect, we ask that you join us in forming a corridor of honor for his final journey home." And the transformation was immediate. Businessmen closed laptops mid-email. Children were gathered by their parents, whispered to about sacrifice. Airport staff stepped away from gates and counters, forming silent ranks. People moved, not with urgency, but with reverence, lining the concourse like sentinels. The chaos of a terminal became the calm of a cathedral. The businessman who once grumbled now stood with his head bowed. A teenage girl, wide-eyed, slipped her phone into her pocket without a word. George Miller, spine straight, lifted his hand in a precise, perfect salute. An elderly man in a wheelchair slowly rose, his wife supporting him with quiet strength. His trembling hand found his brow, delivering a salute decades in the making. The procession resumed. Sam walked at its head, his uniform crisp, his pace steady. Behind him, the flag-draped casket moved like a sacred flame through a corridor of respect. Not a word was spoken, not a phone raised. Even the terminal's announcements seemed to hush, as if the building itself understood the gravity of this moment. Sam's expression remained composed, but his eyes, they glowed with something deeper than pride, something ancient, awakened. In the crowd, his gaze found Maggie's. No words passed, none were needed. In that single glance, a promise fulfilled, an honor preserved, a brother remembered. Maggie nodded once, not as a grieving mother, but as a soldier does, to acknowledge duty met with valor, a bridge between generations of sacrifice. Outside, the hearse waited. Its surface gleamed under the afternoon sun like black glass. The honor guard moved with practiced reverence, easing Danny's casket into place, the flag still vivid, defiant against the gray. Maggie approached, Emma still holding her hand. The little girl now clutched a single white daisy, petals trembling in the breeze. Maggie reached for Sam's hand, her grip firm despite the years. "You kept your promise, Sam," her voice thick with emotion. Tears gathered, but did not fall. Sam reached into his pocket. He pulled out the worn photograph, him and Danny laughing under the stars, somewhere in the dust of a desert war. He pressed it into Maggie's hand. "For you, for Emma." Emma stepped forward, shy but sure, and placed the daisy on the casket. "You're my hero, Danny," she whispered. Silence fell, the kind that says more than any anthem. Travelers, still gathered, watched from a respectful distance, some weeping, others simply standing, unsure why their hearts ached, only knowing they did. From the edge of the crowd, Thornton approached. The clipboard that once clung to him like armor was gone. His head was bowed. "Sergeant," he said, voice quiet, raw. "I was wrong. I didn't understand." Sam looked him in the eyes and simply nodded, not in dismissal, but in quiet forgiveness. The hearse pulled away, carrying Danny toward Arlington. Sam stood at salute, unmoving, until the vehicle disappeared into the horizon. A monument of duty, his posture straight, though his soul bore the weight of grief, brotherhood, and resolve. What had begun as a confrontation of policy had become a testament of principle, a reminder that some traditions endure not because they are efficient, but because they are right. That night, Sam returned to his post, to the place where silence is sacred and motion is measured, the tomb of the unknown soldier. Under a sky powdered with stars, he resumed his vigil. 21 steps, a pause, a turn, then 21 steps again, the rhythm eternal. The wind brushing his face carried more than air. It carried legacy. In a world that rushes forward without looking back, some still stand, some remember, not just with silence, but with action. For Danny, for every soldier who didn't come home, and for those who refused to forget. This is the story of a tomb guard and a fallen soldier, of a photograph, and a promise that held fast against protocol, against pressure, against the rush of time. It is a reminder that at Arlington, where every step is sacred and every salute deliberate, the greatest tribute to the fallen is standing firm in their name. So, if you ever find yourself there, before the tomb of the unknown soldier, stand, watch, listen. And you may hear something deeper than silence, the heartbeat of a nation, strong, enduring, and unbroken through the weight of sacrifice.